This episode of The Edge is brought to you by Audible.com, offering more than 180,000 titles for smartphone, tablet, and desktop. To get a free audiobook of your choice and help Trek.fm at the same time, visit audibletrial.com/trekfm. And also by Enterprise in Space, an international program of the nonprofit National Space Society. Find out how you can help science and education and become a virtual crew member aboard the NSS Enterprise Orbiter by visiting enterpriseinspace.org. And if you want to join the conversation and share your thoughts on this episode, join the Babel Conference, our listeners group on Facebook. Just type BABEL into the Facebook search field. We look forward to seeing you there.
You're listening to Trek FM.
What have you done out there on the edge of Federation space?
Welcome, listeners, to another episode of The Edge, Trek FM's dedicated podcast to Star Trek Discovery. I'm your host, Patrick Devlin, and here with me today, as always, is Amy Nelson. How are you, Amy?
I am doing great. Very excited to be talking Star Trek Discovery, and especially for today.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to talking today. I'll be away for the next 2 weeks, so I'm glad we get to get this in before I leave, and and then we'll get back to it when I get back.
Yeah.
So. We also have the wonderful Hayley Stoddart from Standard Orbit joining us for today's discussion. Welcome, Hayley.
Hello, thank you. Super excited to be here. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah, I'm actually excited too because last time you were on, I unfortunately didn't have any power in my house, so I couldn't get on. And now we get to do a podcast together, which is pretty cool.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I'm excited because it was still nice, but I think sometimes you get three people and there's more to talk about. It makes the discussion better.
Yeah, I really wanted to do that particular character too, so that stunk, but yeah, my house almost blew up, so it was an impossibility. So, but anyway, Amy, why don't you tell the listeners about today's discussion?
Okay, so I just sort of threw this in, so thanks, Patrick, for indulging me. And just after Star Trek Las Vegas and getting to know these actors that are playing these amazing characters whom we have just finished our deep dive with, I thought it would be a great tribute to just pay honor to all the actors on Discovery and just talk about them as people, as actors, and how they respond to the fans. And especially after Star Trek Las Vegas, I am just in love with each and every single one of them. And I just had to have Hayley on because she was there with me. And we have some really good stories and just hope that you listeners can get to know the actors as well as the characters. So that's what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea too, because a lot of times I find that people take out their frustrations on the character on an actor. And this will kind of separate the two. For some people, like you see like this hate for a character spill over to the poor person who's got to play this character, and they're doing a really good job. Yeah. So you actually really hate them too.
Yeah.
But I think this podcast will kind of even it out, that people will realize, well, the actors and the characters aren't the same.
Yeah, they're separate.
So
yeah,
exactly, and they're just people. Like I've said, we consume their work, but they're just people too.
Yeah.
Right, absolutely. So the first character, is the focus of the show. Sonequa Martin Green plays Michael Burnham. Hayley, why don't you give us some thoughts on Sonequa?
I'd never heard of her. I'm not a big horror person, so I do not watch Walking Dead. No thanks. I'm good without zombies. And so this was a first for me. I've never seen her in anything else. I haven't done an IMDb search on everybody that we're going to talk about today, so it was new for me, but I'm really enjoying her, and seeing her on stage this year in Las Vegas and different interviews and stuff. She is so grounded and just speaks so eloquently and from the heart. It's really beautiful. So she's a beautiful person.
Yes, she is. And I have to agree. Like, I searched a couple of her interviews, and she was on Good Morning Britain, and her vocabulary is amazing. So she has really just looked at the big picture and ideals of Star Trek and has embraced them. She talks a lot about this evolution and acceptance, diversity, universality, and this like awakening that Star Trek brings to the forefront and to the population. And she is so caring and aware of her role and her responsibility. I wanted to read a quote that she had where she's talking about the universality of Star Trek. And she says, "It's the epitome of hope. There is nothing to be afraid of with the other. There is only gain. We are only greater than the sum of our parts. We only expand. The only thing you have to look forward to is expansion." And just this whole idea, every time she was on a panel or that I have ever heard her speak, especially about Star Trek Discovery, it's always in these big ideas. And I just feel that she has this great understanding of Gene Roddenberry's vision that we all love, and she just embraces it completely. And I love her so much for that.
So I know I just said like 5 seconds ago that the character and the person is different, but doesn't that quote sound like it could come from Burnham as well?
Exactly.
Like it's almost like she's perfect for this role because she does feel the way that by the end of the season, Burnham feels. Now, I too don't watch Walking Dead because I just didn't like that show at all. But so I don't know any of her previous acting roles or anything. But I find her ability to change speeds amazing throughout the series. She's not the same person beginning to end. She's not even the same person from episode to episode. She's changing constantly, and she's able to act those scenes out perfectly. So that one minute she's a mutineer, and the next minute she's in love with somebody, and then the next minute she's back to being more Vulcan with no feelings, and it doesn't feel, none of them felt forced, or they didn't feel wrong with the character. She was able to pull them all off and still be one single Michael Burnham.
Yeah, her character, and I don't know, the writers did an amazing job with her character development, and certain things that happened to her in the storyline definitely resonated with me personally, and I think that trying to picture somebody else in this role, I don't think that we would have the grace and the stature that someone who is human but is raised by Vulcans would come across on the screen as well as Sonequa does, which I think is a skill to have. I mean, you try not to pull off emotions even though you're human. I mean, really? I don't think any of us can do that, and I try. So, I think it's just, she does a really amazing job. And again, hearing her speak and interacting with questions that were asked of her in Vegas was just really touching and moving.
Well, and one other thing that I was, again, just blown away is what type of leading actor that she was. That she is, I think they kept referring to her as like the first call. So she's, the one that everyone looks to as a leading actor. And I did not hear one bad thing. And I'm sure, they're not going to say anything bad in public, but what they were saying just came from the heart and you knew it was real. They were talking and describing her as graceful, fearless leader, so fun that she brought the crew together. And it was mentioned in some of the panels, actually a couple different panels, like how she was one to initiate this game night. And, while they're filming, like she would get all the crew, all the actors together and build this family environment amongst the actors. And I thought it was so fun that they would play Mafia. Like, I love that game. It's so fun. And, it's a good group game. And who do you remember who said that? I can't.
Oh, gosh. I know Jason Isaacs talked about it.
Yeah, it must have been him. And he's like, yeah, because I'd never played it before. And then they were like...
Someone else did too, but I don't remember. But yeah, I'm totally down with it. Game nights all around.
Yeah. But that she's able to, some of these actors are brand new in acting, and then you have your veterans, and that she's able to just bring them all together and fulfill her role and responsibility as a leading actor. So
Yeah, I think she did a great job of like steering the ship, so to speak, behind the scenes, because the crew comes off perfect on screen. And look, we've seen shows that were good where the people behind the scenes weren't necessarily getting along, but typically they die out pretty quick because that can't last. And this lasted for a whole season, so you never saw a break in the crew's chemistry. In fact, it seemed to get stronger as they filmed, which you learn later that it did because they were doing all these game nights and these other things that were causing that reaction, and that all came from Sonequa in the first place.
Yeah.
So if anyone wants to follow her on Twitter, she's at Sonequa MG.
So our second actor would be Doug Jones. He played Saru.
I think he's the oldest of them all. Because, he mentioned it. And have you two seen The Shape of Water?
No, I haven't.
Gosh. Amazing. Like, this is a serious, dedicated actor. And so to see him, and he talked a lot about all the different parts that he's played and the prosthetics and the differences between what he played with Shape of Water and what he plays with Saru, and the challenges that go with it, and how he started at meme school, and, just he learned his craft, and that his jobs that he gets was because people knew him and his professionalism and stuff like that. So he just is the consummate professional actor. Kudos, much respect for him. What did you think, Hayley?
Yeah, his energy is really great. He's so fun. I know I didn't have a picture or autograph or anything with him this year, but I had friends that did, and you've seen the pictures, and he's throwing his arms around everybody and is just super excited and happy to be there, which I think is great because sometimes they're not always that excited to be there in Vegas. But, and again, he's one where I don't know a lot of his work. I know Hocus Pocus, but I didn't know he was in that. So that was fun to learn, because it's amazing that he's played all these people that you don't know that it's him. And that's wonderful, that he puts himself into the work that much, but he's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I just wanted to share the story, and I did get permission. My friend Joe, has this amazing story. When he was telling me, I just fell in love with Doug Jones. And so Joe went and got a picture and with them, and Joe talked to Doug Jones and was like, I've always felt like I'm not the most beautiful person, and and your roles that you play, are obviously not your typical handsome, looking characters. And so he was just sharing that he really identifies with the roles that Doug Jones plays. And Doug Jones just took him, embraced him, gave him a huge hug, and says, and like almost in his ears, like, "You are beautiful," and kissed his forehead, his chin, his cheeks, both of his cheeks, just like in this clockwise, had his hands on his face, and just enveloped him in this love. And you could feel that Doug Jones really believes that each and every person is beautiful. And I think Joe is just handsome as all get out. So I'm like, oh my gosh, what are you talking about? But that Doug would, just completely embrace him and give him that reassurance, and just, you are beautiful. I thought that says everything there is to say about Doug Jones.
Well, also, not only that you believe that Doug Jones feels that everyone's beautiful, but the fact that he's willing to put that out there, and not, he's played a lot of roles, and this one he's going to be a lot more famous for than other roles, for the wider public, but it's not going to his head. He doesn't believe he's any better, which is more important, because a lot of times people get some fame and they get into a series like Star Trek, and then that overpowers their other personality. I don't want to say that they didn't. I don't want to say they weren't jerks before, but they weren't able to show it. But even with this, and being one of the main characters of a show that at least we believe is going to make everyone pretty famous for, he's still down in his roots and caring about people and understanding the larger picture than just being some famous actor.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I will say, when I was walking around in the vendor's room and he was at that big Discovery area signing, the line was always really, really, really long. But he would come around and he did selfies with people, and the few times that I saw him doing a selfie, he was always just arm around him, pulling him in super close. And I thought, that's great. I love it when they pull you in. It just makes you feel so the warmth from them, and I don't know, it creates that bond, and they appreciate you and you appreciate them, and it's just this, I don't know.
Yeah, and he's not afraid to interact with the fans. Like you said, you could see him and he's always like hugging and loving on his fans and just, you're right, just pulling you in. And it was interesting to hear that he also is one of the actors who will just break out into song. It was funny because Sam
Bartholomeos.
Yes, thank you. That he was saying on the panel, that on day 2, they're breaking out into song and says that Doug Jones was like the first one to start going and we're going to be singing, and so he's got that lighthearted and building this family that, follows Sonequa's example, and that I think they all sort of just take a responsibility of building this family environment on the set that I just absolutely love.
Yeah, and as I was saying before, when I was at Mission, New York, I met, I don't want to say the name because I don't want to blast anybody, but I met someone who was on Star Trek, and my wife actually said to him, "You're my favorite character of all the Star Trek shows." He didn't even acknowledge the statement. Not a thank you, not a no, nothing. Just signed the paper and threw it at her, and we had to keep going. Like that, to me, that's not what I'm paying for.
Right.
I mean, you don't have to hug me. Don't get me wrong. You don't have to go as far as Doug Jones do, but at least say thank you or glad you watched or something along those lines, but people saw that person do that and they still kept paying money because they remember the character, and it's good to see that a lot of this newer group isn't like that.
No, I can't even say that one of them was like that at all. And when Doug was on the panel, he, of course, was talking about Saru, and it feels like, again, that he has this character development and this past, that he makes this connection with Saru, and he feels and it's his desire for people to look to Saru for a little bit of hope of overcoming your fears, and he talks about his episode where he was on Pavo, and just that the strength lies within each of us for us to overcome our fears, and that was pretty emotional, and to hear him talk about that was really awesome to give us that hope,
Yeah, absolutely, and he played it so well, the absolute fear, and then
not having it,
and then not having any. But it wasn't. He didn't just not have any because he actually had a fear of losing, not having fear.
Right.
So he wasn't completely fear-free, but it was it was different. It was, and he pulled it off so great that it, again, didn't seem forced. It didn't seem odd or out of character, and it wasn't outside his range of being able to act it. And the writers get some credit for that, but not completely because he still has to pull it off.
And so if you would like to follow him on Twitter, he is at actor Doug Jones.
Our third actor we're going to go into is Shazad Latif, who played Ash Tyler, and Volk. Hayley.
Yeah. So, gosh, I was not in on that panel. I'm trying to think. There was quite a few I missed. So I wasn't in there, but, I love his smile.
Yes.
Like, his smile, he beams, even when he's got the beard. He just beams. And I think it's so great that, he's playing this characters that we're all just not quite sure about. And he's okay with that, and he's comfortable with it. And I think playing someone that gives that much different reactions from the audience is really hard, because you could easily slip one way or the other based off of how you view the characters and how people react to it. So what about you, Amy? Were you in on that one? I didn't see that one, so.
Yeah, and he's actually probably in my opinion, the most shy. Not the one that's speaking the most, but when he does, it's just so great to see him interact. He definitely, I felt the love and the respect that he has for all of us fans. He's so grateful. I did go through and watch a couple of other interviews that he have done. And he also was at Star Trek Las Vegas last year. And so it was interesting because, remembering and watching that, rewatching that again, like, he was talking about speaking Klingon and, definitely how complex that is and difficult. But he learned Arabic quite young and Spanish. And so those deep guttural sounds, from the Arabic language, like he was able to pull into the Klingon. And then I was like, yeah, that's great. That's great. And he also likes Next Gen. And he... we'll throw that out. But he talked about one of the movies where he's like, that he remembered really identifying with Picard wanting to stay in the Zen relationship. And I believe he was talking about Insurrection. And he said that it was so important for this complexity of a character, which he definitely plays, to have this type of relationship within a science fiction show, like this sci-fi show, but then yet to still have the relationship. And I thought that was pretty intuitive for him to pick up on that, because he has, and it was said, it's not a love triangle, it's a love square. And then he's like, it's a love parallelogram. And I'm like, yes, way to bring in the math for that. So I love Shazad for that. But he really appreciates playing this complex role, and he was talking about for season 2, like, well, what are people going to call you? Vokler or Tyler or Voke? And he's like, you know what? They can call whatever you want, because that ambiguity is what he likes in the role. And I'm just like, that is so awesome for this actor to be accepting of the ambiguity, because I think if I were playing it, I'm like, no, I need all my questions answered. And he's just so freeform, willing to have it not be exactly answered in every single way. I think that is a great trait that he has and that brings to the character.
So I didn't know anything about him before watching Discovery, but on the recommendation of Lee Hutchinson, I went back and watched some Toast of London.
Oh. Because
he said that's where he was originally from. In a conversation we had on The Edge, he had said, if you want to see more of him, watch Toast of London.
That's right.
That's great, except he's nothing like this character at all. I mean, his acting ability is amazing, because that's more of like an English comedy. And then he's doing this, which is a very serious role. Mm-hmm. And I think that's part of the reason why he's able to do that, not care what it is, and have that ambiguity, because, the comedies are more like that. You know what I mean? Like, they're more free-flowing than, say, a Star Trek. And I think as an actor, I most relate with him, because I wouldn't want a stern set of, you're going to do this, 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 and this. I'd want to be able to kind of fudge the corners a little bit. It might blow up in your face and do it horrible. He did not. He did a great job of it. Mm-hmm. But that's how I would want to be if I was acting in a role such as this. I would want to not kind of know and kind of be able to lead my own ship with that in mind, Mm-hmm.
My friend Shannon, she does the auctions in Vegas, and she actually won the poster, banner, whatever, the Shazad one that they had. And she got to have it signed, and she said that he was just so incredibly nice. She was super excited about it. And so I think that's great, and it speaks to all of them. Every single interaction that I've had or that other people have had that I've heard about, this whole cast is very embracing of the fans because they understand, I think, that importance. And I think it's great. And so many of them grew up watching some iteration of Star Trek, and I think that helps them relate to us and our love of it. And so I think it helps them love it even more too.
Yeah, we actually spoke about that in the last episode that this is the first time that the people on the show were not just finding out about Star Trek when they were hired to be on the show, which has changed the mood at like the conventions and such when meeting these characters. And that's not to say that, like, I met Beverly Crusher, I met Gates McFadden, and she was great, but it's a little different because she wasn't a fan. So she doesn't completely understand what it's like on my side of the table, whereas a lot of these other people, they may have been on that side of the table with us at one point.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it was really fun to hear, at the panel, and one of the questions came up and was like, so I think it was Sam again, that he just got his autograph and was like, this question is for Shazad. And Sam says that you're the best dancer of the crew. And it was just so cute. He blushed a little and then everyone else was, yeah, he's a good dancer and stuff, and so they go out dancing together. And it was just so cute that their interaction one with another. And so he's a good dancer as well.
Yeah, so what we're saying is we want to see a flash mob next season.
Exactly.
That's what we're saying here.
Well, and a musical, I think, right?
Yes. Well, they're singing and now dancing.
Episode.
Yeah.
Yes. We just want a musical episode. That's all.
Yeah. And then it was
dancing.
Yeah, it was asked then. It's like, well, who's the next best dancer? And they said Oyen was the next best dancer. And so, we definitely need to see, a flash mob there. And if you would like to follow Shazad Latif, he is on Twitter at Shazad.
Awesome. So that moves us on to one of my favorite characters of the series, who I didn't think I was going to like in the beginning, but Anthony Rapp, who plays Paul Stamets. I thought he played an amazing, amazing role here. Amy, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm going to keep it brief because we could spend an entire episode just on Anthony Rapp and Wilson Cruz together. What an amazing, amazing person Anthony Rapp is from the get-go. He is so responsive and interactive with the fans. He has a great social media presence, and it was so cute because, unfortunately, there's haters out there, and it was so cute to hear him describe what he does when he gets negative, comments from stupid people that don't know what they're talking about. And he's like, but really 99.9% is all positive. However, when someone says, something negative, he just tweets back, thanks for sharing, and how gracious is that to just say, you have your opinion. I don't agree with it. I'm not even going to, give you the time of day with it because it's not worth it. But, thanks for sharing and move on. And I think we can learn so much from that example. I was like, I'm writing that down and I'm going to do that for anyone no one gives me any hard time, but thanks for sharing.
Yeah, I should take advice there because people give me a hard time all the time. So I'll just have to say thanks for sharing from now on. I didn't realize he was in Rent though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I saw him in Rent then, because I definitely went back years ago and went and saw Rent because my wife loves that play. But so I saw him there. He was great there because I thought everyone was great there. The only problem with Rent was they had a person from American Idol on Rent. Not that was a problem in and of itself, but the amount of teenagers who were there screaming kind of made it hard to hear the play.
Right.
So, but the play itself was amazing, I thought, and again. That just leads to we need a musical, right? Because that's exactly within that wheelhouse. And it shows just how diverse the abilities of this crew are. Mm-hmm. This group is. They come from not just acting in sci-fi or drama or whatever. They come from all different types of acting to meld this great group that works perfectly together.
Yeah, and another one, when I was doing the research, I forgot to mention, but you bring it up, A Beautiful Mind, the movie. which is about a mathematician. So I've seen it multiple times, and I'm like, oh, he was in that. And got a SAG nominee for Best Cast Ensemble for Beautiful Mind. I was just, again, very impressed. He's been, on Broadway, on film, like he's all over the place, and what a great get for Discovery to have him there. Yeah, and he really is a wonderful person. I've had some conversations with him briefly on Twitter, and in Vegas, I've talked about it already, but I walked up to him and was able to give him a bookmark because he reads, and he was just really gracious and so wonderful and genuine. I love that he's very genuine in his interactions with fans, and I agree. We all can take a note, and we get those people who are just negative and argumentative, and it just circles and cycles, and choosing not to engage in that. It's really hard. It's really hard not to want to defend yourself or your ideas or whatever it is that you're doing when someone is attacking you. But I think to try and not do that, because it just never gets anywhere. It's a train going against, a mountain kind of thing. Mm-hmm. To be able to say no, and like he said, thanks for sharing. Mm-hmm. And move on.
And some of the criticism towards him wasn't necessarily about him or his character. It's that they felt they shoehorned parts of his character into the show just to have it there. So for him not to react to that is even more amazing, because you're not going to get anywhere by fighting with somebody who doesn't like the fact that your character has a boyfriend. You're not going to. Mm-hmm. You're not going to change their opinion. So not fighting, and a lot of the negative, really the only negative you would hear is that people felt like that didn't need to happen, except that it did. So what's the big deal? We show a man and a woman together all the time. No one says that didn't have to happen between the two characters. So a lot of people, I did see a lot of comments, not a lot, but most of the comments that were negative towards him would be those. And for him not to fight that, because what's the point? It's just easier. He'll look like the bad guy if he argued back. So it was, and that's not an easy thing to do, because it's something you care about the character. It's your character, your legacy, and people are downplaying it. Of course you're going to want to fight, but is that really the right thing? Probably not.
Well, and it seemed like this year there was a greater representation in the LGBTQ community, and both Anthony Rapp and Wilson Cruz, spoke to this, and they both just felt like they were so warmly welcomed. They understand their responsibility in that. And, it was so good to see them accept and embrace what they were bringing to Star Trek. I mean, the first openly gay couple, and that they accepted it and that they took it on wholeheartedly. And it really has opened up this community, and Anthony Rapp is a huge part of that. One other thing that they did talk about, that Anthony talked about, was that he also is a Star Trek fan, and he was mentioning a couple of episodes. He is a Next Gen baby. He said that when he was working on Rent, that he didn't watch any TV except this Next Generation show that he would watch, and he mentioned Measure of a Man as being one of his favorites, but also loves the original series, and he mentioned Balance of Terror, and so he definitely knows his good episodes, and it was great. I love it when they love Star Trek.
Yeah, because that's the dream, right? I mean, really, they're living the dream. They grew up with it, and now they're in it, and that's the dream of all of us, like to have some role in it. Mm-hmm. Yep.
So if you would like to follow Anthony Rapp, he is on Twitter @AlbinoKid.
The next person I'd like to talk about would be Mary Wiseman, who played Sylvia Tilly, who we just recently did a whole episode about her character, but we did talk a little bit about her, so let's expand on that.
Well, she is just this amazing, just breath of fresh air. She lightens up every single room that she walks into. It's so amazing that she does this, because she talks about that she has social anxiety issues, not unlike Tilly. And so to hear that, it's like, no way. But then she, as the character Tilly does, like, encourages everyone to open up and allow yourself to live in the moment with the people around you and to just be present. And, she spoke about that actually a couple of times. I actually did see Mary Wiseman in Longmire, which is a Netflix original. And I thought she was just great. Completely different character. She plays the girlfriend of one of the secondary characters in Longmire. But again, when she was on screen, it was like everything was brighter. She just has this inner quality that seriously, it just makes you feel happy being around her. I'm totally Mary Wiseman fan completely.
So when I hear that she also has social anxiety, I wonder if her parents got her into acting as a way of trying to help that, because I've thought about that. My son is very, very shy, so we've thought about putting him into acting classes or something along those lines to help that out, because I have a friend who, when she was young, she was very, very, she had very bad social anxiety, and she had no ability to act or dance or sing, so her parents put her into modeling. And she ended up working in Colombia for companies that were equivalent to, say, like Armani here, and was a runway model for a couple of years. But it all started not because they cared about that. They didn't care about the modeling itself. It started because she couldn't even ask the teacher to go to the bathroom in first grade. Like, she was too afraid to talk. And whatever people want to think of it, it helped her get out of that. I mean, she was never going to be like the class clown. That's not who she is. But she was able to talk to people and have conversations where in first grade, that was like, her parents thought that was never going to happen. So I wonder if this was a way to help her, if her parents thought this was a way, or if it just came about some other way and it just, it does help. Because it definitely helps having to stand in front of a camera. And even if you're playing another role, I am, even doing these podcasts, very worried about how I sound to the rest of the world. So, social anxiety, that wouldn't seem to fit in with choosing that to begin with. But it would help in the long run, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, it was interesting also sort of differently, because we know Tilly's character, she's in the science and stuff like that. And so one of the persons to ask a question on the panel, she's like, I'm a 8th grade math teacher. And I was like the only one in the room to scream. I was like, woohoo! I was like, okay, lone voice in the back representing. And so, was saying her quote from the season 2 trailer, "Behold the power of math people." And then Mary goes on to explain, like, she understands the importance of women in STEM and how her role is, hopefully encouraging women and young girls to get involved in STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and math. So I definitely appreciated Mary for saying that.
I will say, so in thinking of kind of how I want to talk about this, I did a photo op with her, and so I was in line, and I'm sure Crystal won't mind. She's put it out there. Her picture, and I don't know what she said, because I was still far back enough in line that I didn't hear what was said, but I could see it happening. But I don't know, whatever she said to Mary was totally on board with, like, making this, like, scream face for her picture. And, there were other ones, and she was holding phasers with people. She was totally engaging, and which is really fun, because a lot of the actors, they won't do that in the photo op there, But it was so much fun just watching her with other people while I was in line waiting to get my picture with her. She was just so bright and warm and fun, and making it fun for everybody else too. And I think she had a lot of fun too, or at least I hope she had a lot of fun with it.
Yeah,
I would think she did, and not that I know her personally, but we did an episode about Tilly, and Brandy from Warp 5 did the ode to Tilly, and she actually commented on it.
Yeah.
So she listens to this, and she she enjoyed the ode to Tilly, So I think that these actors, they really feel that these characters are a part of them, and that, by giving an ode to Tilly, it's not, she understands it's not just Tilly. Tilly wouldn't be the same with a different actress playing it. Now, and that's not to say that another actress couldn't do a good job, but it wouldn't be this Tilly. And this Tilly's the one we love. So, they feel that as well, that it's that our feeling is partly them, which is why in the beginning I said when someone really hates a character and they can't separate it, it probably hurts a lot of these actors as well, because they don't feel these are just roles on a screen. At least that's how they come off to me.
Yeah. And you're right. She, Mary Wiseman, was on Twitter and, giving props to Brandy for her ode to Tilly. I mean, who does that? That is so amazing. And she, she did talk about social media, and saying, people, when you tag us in a tweet or add us at a tweet, like, we see it, and that those negative comments hurt us. And I was like, wow, that was so powerful and brazen of her to say that, but needs to be said. And be careful what you're saying, because they are humans. That she was telling us, we're just people too, just like you. And so those negative comments do hurt us, and I just was so impressed that, all of them. And she was talking about it, just like, we are on social media. We do hear you. And again, just welcoming and bringing those fans in that, we've just never seen anything like this before.
Right. And today, people don't know how to criticize properly anymore. They don't know how to separate the actor or actress from the character. They don't understand that just because Tilly did something I didn't like in the show doesn't mean that Mary Wiseman sucks. Like, those two things aren't the same. Mm-hmm. She did her job, and if you didn't like, and I don't think Tilly did anything at all throughout the whole series that anyone would criticize the character for. I'm just using that because that's who we're talking about now. But people, they attack the person as if this person, we're going to go on to Gabriel Lorca in a minute, but they attack Jason Isaacs for what Lorca did on screen. Like, it wasn't written for him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's not just that. It's a matter of respect, and it's a matter of boundaries. And, that's coming a lot from my place of work, the work that I do. But there's just this lack of respect. And because we're all on social media and we're out there, people don't understand that, yes, just because you have a thought and you want to put it out there doesn't mean you necessarily should. And there's no longer that think before you speak, because you're not saying it just to someone's face anymore. It's,
right.
You're putting it out there and you're hiding behind that screen, and you think that the person doesn't see it or doesn't hear it just because it's coming across on a phone or a tablet rather than face-to-face anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's rough. It's not right. We've heard these stories over and over again recently with the Star Wars crews and other people that, these people are being destroyed on social media as if they're bad people, and they're not.
Right.
They're just people. They're just people who act, some that love it, some that don't, some that love the role they're in, some that don't, but they're doing the best they can for you. And it didn't just start here, because we've been doing it to athletes for 40 years. Mm-hmm. We'll go to a ballpark, and the guy strikes out for the third time, and 70,000 people stand up and boo the guy and start yelling and screaming at him. All right, look, you want to boo, I get, that's fine. He's having a bad day. Okay. But you'll hear people talk about guys' mothers on the field. Like, what? Are you kidding me, right? I can tell you a story. David Wells' mother died while he was in the middle of a series with the Red Sox, and the fans went to the bullpen to yell things about his mother because they knew he died. Yankee fans aren't much better. I'm not trying to point out just Red Sox fan because I'm a Yankee fan, because I can tell you right now, when David Justice was on Atlanta or something, he got a divorce from his wife, and they blew up a doll, put his wife's name on it, and bounced her around the stands on him. There's a line that you shouldn't cross. And the problem is, at least then, you actually had to buy a ticket and go to the stadium to do it. Yeah. Not that makes it right, but you had to actually be in the building. Mm-hmm. Now you can do it from your phone, anywhere in the world. Send it, hit send, and not care. And it just made it more prevalent in more industries.
Yeah.
Well, we got our little sports education there.
Yeah, sorry.
No.
I'm a sports guy.
Definitely, have that connection. It was interesting to, Mary also talked about that there is this impromptu singing, as we talked about before. And it was so cute. She's like, anytime there's a Beyonce, and she's like, Love on Top. And they're like, it's usually her, Wilson, and Sonequa. And like, I'm not familiar with the Beyonce song Love on Top, but it keeps like key changing higher and higher. And she's like, yeah, we try and go there. And then she teasingly says, Anthony isn't allowed to join in. I thought that was so cute. So just impromptu singing and just them, again, time after time, recognizing that they are this tight-knit, they like each other, they love each other. It's this family environment. I just thought it was great. And Mary is also a TNG fan, and she gave a shout out to the Outcast. So...
It's a good episode.
Yes. And if you would like to follow Mary on Twitter, she is at May_wise.
So I touched on the character a second ago, but the next person I'd like to talk about is Jason Isaacs, who played Gabriel Lorca. Hayley, what'd you think of his acting?
Oh my gosh, so good. I can chat a little bit. Unfortunately, if the listeners know of it, you cannot find his STLV appearance on YouTube. But if anyone has it, please share it, because it was amazing. Amy was not there and missed out. He is so much fun. Oh my gosh, just... I've enjoyed him in, my daughter's a Harry Potter fan, so of course Harry Potter was great in that. The Patriot, the person you just really wanted to hate. But, he talked about how he kind of struggled when he was approached to play Lorca, that he wanted to know, kind of where this character was going, where it was from, and they weren't really forthcoming with that information, and it really bothered him. And he kind of had that, they approached him and he kind of said no, and then they approached him again, and they really wanted him for this role. And he talks about like the uniforms and how basically you couldn't move in them. Mm-hmm. And just absolutely phenomenal. He did not have a moderator. This was his first time coming to Star Trek Las Vegas and engaging with the fans, but he's obviously got past experience because of Harry Potter, so he's been there and done this before. There was a couple of things that I was searching for and did find from some interviews last year, and one of them asked him to kind of compare his time on Harry Potter with being in Discovery and Star Trek, and he said, they're both enjoyable, but he's really enjoying being in Star Trek. He talked about watching TOS with his family when he was growing up, so he's kind of that fan, and his in the video he's got some reactions that are just again, it's us, it's us, and like, oh my gosh, did you see that, and to different things on set, or being able to do certain things. And I did a photo op with him, and he was just absolutely wonderful. I'm so glad that I did it, because someone else wasn't there that was supposed to be my photo op. Anyway, that's another story. And I'm so glad that I did it, because he was so incredibly nice and wonderful, and just I could not love him more as a person himself. I think he's wonderful. There's never been a role of his that I haven't enjoyed him in that I have watched, and he's great. Yeah.
Again, unfortunately, he came on really early, and I had a really late night. That darn Masquerade bar, I'm telling you. But I did see him, of course, throughout the convention, and, sitting at the table, and he was always engaging with the fans. He was always there. He was always present. It seemed like he was just always listening, and I saw him quite a few times on the After Trek, and just... Man, he is so intelligent, so good to make comparisons and understand. And it was pretty cool that, we know that he knew Lorca was Mirror before anyone else, and so how he was playing that and stuff. And just his presence there really lifted. I mean, everyone was excited that Jason Isaacs was there because, this was his first Star Trek convention. And so exciting to have him there.
Yeah, it was so much fun. Seriously, missed such a good panel. It was great.
Okay, thanks for rubbing it in a little bit more.
Salt in wound. Well, hey, look.
He dropped, I think, probably the most F-bombs I have ever heard on stage. And it was, every single one of them was just, it was brilliant.
So, my kind of guy. She's rubbing it in on you, but I missed all of them because I didn't get to go. So, in case listeners haven't noticed as a team, they keep talking about panels, and I keep talking about what I've seen them in otherwise.
Yeah.
Because I didn't see any panels. I was unfortunately dealing with a totaled car instead of being at Star Trek Las Vegas. So, I lose this round. But he plays... So, I'm going to talk about what he's played before. Mm-hmm. He plays the perfect cerebral sociopath. I mean... In both Harry Potter and this, he's a genius at being bad.
Yes.
He really is. And it's not just the writing. It's not, because I couldn't play that role that way. I just couldn't pull it off. I wouldn't get either one of them right, and it would show. He plays them to a T, and I think that's amazing because he seems very smart, but he doesn't seem like a lunatic. Maybe I'm wrong because he drops a lot of F-bombs, but he does play those two roles perfect, and the nuance between the two that make them so much different is great.
Yeah. 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 And he, like I said, he's just absolutely wonderful. And yeah, it was great. It was great to see him there. And hopefully, he'll come again and have more interactions with the fans, just because the ones that I did see, he was just absolutely wonderful.
Yeah. And he is quite political. And I happen to agree with him most of the time. So, if you'd like to follow him on Twitter, he is at Jason's Folly.
So the next character, or the next person, actually was one of the first to respond to one of our podcasts, and it was Mary Chieffo, who plays Laurel. Amy, what did you think of her?
Oh my gosh. And I said it on the podcast, like, she has my heart. I love Mary Chieffo so much. When we did her deep dive character on Laurel, like, she listened to the podcast. She tweeted us. I was on cloud 9 for like the whole week. I couldn't even believe it. I was like, picture or, frame, what's that
screenshot
called? Yeah, screenshot, showing it to everyone. I'm like, look. Oh my gosh, she is so incredible. She was also at Star Trek Las Vegas last year, so I've known her since last year. She is so incredibly real, down to earth. Like, she could be the best neighbor and wouldn't even know that she's a superstar in Discovery. Like, she's just so real, and her interactions with the fans are always on point. Like, she loves them. She respects them. Oh my gosh, I could just talk forever about Mary. I love her so much. So I will turn it over, Hayley, and then I'll say some more things.
So that, unfortunately, this year at least, was one of the panels that I missed, but I did hear about it. And again, it's just amazing that this cast is so much in love with the show, in love with their characters, and in turn in love with the fans just as much as we're in love with them. And it definitely shows. I have yet to follow her on Twitter, but I will. I'm going to do it right now, actually. But I did see your interactions with her, and I heard about it, and I haven't listened to the episode, but I think it's amazing.
Yes,
and she is incredibly tall. Like, yeah, I feel short. But I think it's great that she's embracing this character and is making this character incredibly strong and powerful. And I'm excited just to see where she takes the character, not just based off what's written on the page for her, but she herself, what she brings to the character. So I'm excited.
Yeah, so like Amy, I ran around and showed everybody when she retweeted our episode. And, I was showing guys at work who don't watch Star Trek, never watch Star Trek, don't care at all that I podcast, nothing. I was like, look, someone famous actually heard of me. And we talked about it during her episode. She seems like a great person. And the fact that she's tall, I didn't actually know that. Makes sense because you want a Klingon to be tall, right? I mean, you don't want little short Ferengi-sized Klingons. That would be weird. But she seems like a great person. And the fact that she listens to a podcast done by, me and Amy and a third person every week and hears her name comes up and she actually listens and gave a little bit of feedback about it is amazing because most actors don't have the time for that or don't want to have the time for that. They just want to move on because who knows? We could have destroyed her in that podcast, but she was going to listen to it anyway. And we didn't, but we could have.
And she talks about working with Jane Brooks and with Sonequa and how much that she is learning from them and gleaning and following their example. And it was amazing. Hayley, you missed it. And I'm sure you've seen it's out on YouTube, but her and Jane Brooks recreated this Klingon scream that they screamed at each other. It was so funny. And she was just the cutest, she was embarrassed, but was going to do it to appease the fans. And, Jane Brooks, man, she was like, let's do this. And Mary was just like, he, okay. And then instantly went into Laurel. And it was it was fierce, it's like, oh man. And she just, she wanted to please the fans. And, I just, so much respect for her. So much, and she has nothing but good things to say about Sonequa and like I said, Jane Brooks. And you can tell she's learning and on how to be this true leading actor, and I think she's going to go far. It was interesting to hear her say, actually last year she started with Star Trek. With the 09 movies that came out, the Kelvin timelines. That got her interested, and then she went and did the TOS movies. Woohoo! And then for her preparation, she watched all the Klingon-based episodes of every iteration. So she got to see, all the Klingons throughout this entire franchise. And she said that really helped her get an idea of not only the Klingons, but the actors and their gel that they had with each other for, their family, for their show. And so I thought, man, she picked up a lot from that. And she's a great Klingon. And I love you, Mary.
And this seems to be somewhat of a recurring theme among this group of actors and actresses, that they really did their homework. They didn't just show up and try and act parts. They, these Klingons were a lot different than the other Klingons, but she was able to fold those Klingons into what we see in Discovery. And I think for me anyway, and I think it's safe to say for many people, that she was the best Klingon on the show. And this has a lot to do with it, that she was able to fold in how the other Klingons were. So she was the most identifiable to us as a Klingon because of that.
Yes.
Yeah. That's really amazing. I think that, she's gone back and watched all of these, and that's really fun because we get so much more development of the Klingon culture as you go through the different series and watch just the Klingon episodes, not just, characters, but you get to see more of that culture, which I think is great because that'll lend to them making that culture, because that's where we're at with the Klingons. We have all this past, but we don't know how it started. And I'm excited to see that. And how that
if you would like to follow Mary Chieffo on Twitter, she is at Mary the Chief.
Which is perfect, right? Because she's kind of like the boss.
Exactly.
The last for this particular podcast, but we're going to go back to the rest of the characters in next week, and certainly not least, is Wilson Cruz as Hugh Culber, who I didn't realize was in 13 Reasons Why before. But then when I watched back, I remembered him being there because I watched that with my wife, and that was actually the first season was really good. The second, not so much. But Amy, what do you think of Wilson Cruz?
He's probably the one. Every time he was on a panel and he was on a couple, like he would get emotional. I would get emotional. His love of what he is doing is so transparent. You cannot help but love Wilson Cruz and for what he stands for and what he's doing with this role and this responsibility with Star Trek. His excitement is so real and raw. I mean, and we talked about it when we did our Picard reaction. Like there was Wilson Cruz screaming with excitement that he saw Patrick Stewart embracing, Jonathan Frakes, and just his reaction is all of our reactions. Like he embodies all of the fans of Star Trek, and here he is playing a role. And oh my gosh, Hayley, I know you've got a lot to say about Wilson Cruz, so I'm not going to talk too long because I know the love is real.
Gosh. Yeah, from the moment that when he came last year, I absolutely fell in love with Wilson Cruz. And him talking about his time and joining this show and growing up. And we hadn't even seen an episode yet. And I was already on board with his character 100%. No matter what, I was going to be excited about him coming on screen every single time, and I was never let down, and I loved seeing him every single time. And so this year, getting to see him again and seeing that panel, that was a crazy day. I realized that I'd left my photo op tickets in my room as I had sat down for the panel, and I was staying at the Gold Coast, and I booked it. And if you run, you can make it from the convention area to the Gold Coast and back in like 10 minutes flat because I didn't want to miss it. And I was so glad that I didn't miss it, that, he and I've chatted with Wilson back and forth on Twitter before. The other day for Trek Tuesday, I decided I'm wearing my Dr. Culber pin, and I tweeted a picture and he tweeted back and he replied, "I got you." And I had a photo op with him. I wore my Wesley Crusher "You Shut Up" because that's how I feel about everybody who wants to say something negative about anything to do with Discovery, with the actors. I just want to be like, just shut up. And he read my shirt and he laughed. And so my picture, it's a funny reaction because I'm just kind of laughing because we talked and he's like, "Let me see that." He's like, "Let me read that shirt." And he's like, "Oh my gosh, I love it," because he grew up on TNG. And so he watched TNG. And like you said, Amy, his reaction to getting to meet Patrick Stewart, his captain, that's all of us. And I cannot say anything. I could go on and on and on, but I won't, because he is so gracious and so beautiful when he speaks about being on this show, about being the character that he is on this show, about being in this relationship on the show with Paul Stamets, and their relationship in person between Anthony Rapp and Wilson Cruz is beautiful. And he lights up when he talks about it, and he gets emotional, and you feel that from him. And that's really hard to portray to a room of thousands of people, and to feel that emotion that he feels. I'll stop now.
What amazes me about him is he understands the impact of his character. And for a character that's, we've been told we're going to see him again, but it's going to have to be flashbacks or something like that, right? So for a character that really is only going to be in one season, as a main focus anyway, the impact that his character has, because it's the first openly gay couple, is massive. It's going to be massive for the history of the show. The only way for it not to be is if we all forget tomorrow that Star Trek ever existed, which isn't going to happen. But it's not just that he did it, it's that he understands it because he's a fan, because he understands Star Trek and what the fans are really looking for in Star Trek. That It's not just about flying through space and fighting things like some other sci-fi shows. Not that that's a negative in and of itself, but that's not what Star Trek is, and that's not what we watch it for and love it for. And for him to understand his role in that is amazing to me, because he's still also a huge fan. It didn't change who he is just because he had this amazing breakthrough of a character to play.
Yeah, and, you know, he said that he was just completely honored to play the first openly gay couple played by an openly gay actors. Just feels like a miracle. And he is such an emotional and real person. Like, he tears up really quite easily. Brandy would really enjoy him. But, you know, he tears up and he said, you know, when people, he's like, every day he gets someone writing to him, telling him their story of, you know, coming out or the trials that they have, you know, and just accepting the LGBTQ community. And that Star Trek sends a message of love and acceptance. And he says that I hear you, I love you. And what they did outside of convention time, like both Anthony Rapp and Wilson Cruz attended Night of Diversity. They were there. They didn't have to do this. They came to be with the fans to, you know, show their love and respect for the LGBTQ community. And they not only attended Night of Diversity, they also went to Gays in Space. So they were traveling, attending these events, spending their own personal time, you know, interacting with the fans and opening up and sharing their love and receiving our love. It truly was beautiful. And yeah, he loves TNG, so that makes him awesome in my book. But he also is watching TOS, and he said in the panel that he was watching Is There in Truth No Beauty, and just went on about the ideas there and like how lonely Spock was, but yet that we are all together. And I just like, man, he's picking up these major Star Trek themes. He's embracing them completely and sharing them with us. Like, amazing Wilson Cruz, amazing.
And one day, you know, 40 years from now, there'll be someone podcasting, whatever the thing is then, talking about the themes that he brought out, which is even more amazing to me.
Yeah. And, you know, I love that, and this speaks to the writers and it speaks to Anthony and Wilson, that, you know, the relationship we see on screen, it's just a relationship. It's not in your face. It's beautiful. It's a relationship like anybody else would have. And I just absolutely love it. I'm going to get emotional. I got a hug from him last year because he brought me to tears. And I shared about my brother coming out, and, you know, where I grew up, it's not accepted. And it was just absolutely beautiful. And I got a hug from him again this year. And, you know, it's, yeah.
He is quite amazing. And if you would like to follow him on Twitter at WCruz73. And apparently he has an Instagram with his fabulous abs, which I need to go and follow right now.
Or on Facebook.
Oh.
He'll post his Instagram pictures on Facebook. You can like him on Facebook too.
So they're out there. Again, yeah. Oh, we'll save that for final thoughts.
Which is right now. Yeah. So we'll start with Hayley, though. Hayley, you have any final thoughts on these actors?
You know, my final thoughts, just to sum it up again, these guys are absolutely amazing. They embrace, I think, everything that we love about this show as fans, that we love about every series, and they embrace us for it. And I think that's wonderful, because there's a lot of the actors who don't necessarily embrace what they've done, and they don't embrace the people who love it as much as we do. And they understand that it is important. It's, you know, and that everything's important for us as the fans, and there's meaning to it that we all get from it. And I think that's great that they understand that and appreciate it.
Amy, your final thoughts?
Yeah, I just thinking about what you said, Hayley, like they have the advantage of being on social media, and they take advantage of it because they are so interactive with us. They appreciate, and it's real. I really wouldn't be saying this if I felt it was fake. There are some actors who I feel it's fake. They come to STLV. You just sort of feel like, oh, it's something to do. And I get it. For some of these actors, it's been 50, 30, 25 years. I get it. And so we get this a breath of fresh air because Discovery Cast, this is their first, and for some of them, their second year. They haven't been through 30, 50 years of this. And so we get this freshness and their love, and we feel it and they feel it. And it's so amazing interacting with them. I just think they respond so well. They are understanding the idea of what Star Trek is, that philosophy of a better future and a hope for a better future that they are living. And I just am so glad that I've had this opportunity to see them at STLV, and really look forward to getting to know them better as people, because they each are just really, really good people.
Yeah, so my final thoughts kind of mirror both of yours. I mean, I get, like you said, Amy, I get it with some of these people. If your show ended in 2000, you've been basically talking the same questions for 18 years now. So eventually they gotta get tired, right? But there's ways of doing that are right and wrong. Some people didn't want to do it 17 years ago. They didn't want to answer these questions. Mm-hmm. And some of them just don't care. Like I told that story with the one person my wife said's favorite character, and he didn't even acknowledge the statement happened. Mm-hmm. So that gives away it was a guy at least. And then on the other hand, when I met Beverly Crutcher, Gates McFadden, she was amazed to find out that my daughter was actually named after her character on Star Trek. And, you know, that's kind of a weird thing to say. Hey, my daughter's named after not you, but your character. Yeah. And she really embraced it and loved it. She loved that fact and even signed, you know, from Beverly to Beverly, mm-hmm. and then put her real name. But these characters, not only are they fresh, they're getting new questions. And even if they were there twice, you know, the questions are new, but also they were fans. And you can really tell that in all their interactions with people on social media. Now, I have to be completely honest and admit that I don't follow actors and actresses much. I don't on purpose, because sometimes they'll say things and do things that then make me not want to watch their show. None of these have done that. Right. Nobody here has done something, said something, or reacted in a way that I'm like, it's just a bad person. I don't want to support them financially. Other people in Star Trek have done that at times, and I don't. That's why I try and just stay away from the actors and keep them separate. And also, then I also feel that, like I said earlier, people attack characters and make it about the actor. And if you keep them completely separate, I can talk about a character and not bring the actors or actresses' personal life or beliefs into it because I don't know them. And I think this show is starting to change that for me. I think I want to know these actors more than I have in any other series of any other show. And that's a good thing. I think that's a great thing because they're fans like me. And I feel like a lot of them are like me, like, especially like Wilson Cruz, who is standing in line waiting to meet Gates McFadden as much as I am. You know, like, I just see him doing that. Now he doesn't have to wait in line anymore, lucky guy. But he, you know, he was me before he was here. And that's an amazing thing to me. And the other thing is they didn't just put together a great cast. They put together a great cast that loves working together, or at least that's the outward appearance. And every show, not just Star Trek, but every show has turmoil. And because Star Trek is so under a microscope, we always find out about theirs. And they had their share of turmoil, but it's not the cast, and that matters. That makes a big difference because even if the writers don't write the perfect story or whatever, the actors can bring in things that the viewer still loves, even with a script that may not be perfect. Yeah. And I think it's more important to have great actors who love working with each other than it is to have great screenwriters. I may be completely wrong, but that's how I feel. And I think this cast is perfect together.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree.
And listeners, we're going to do a part 2 and cover the rest of the crew. And it's just going to echo what Patrick is saying. So stay tuned.
Yeah. We're definitely not done. We have a lot of great characters still cover. We just have time restraints.
Yes.
So thank you, Hayley, for coming on The Edge. Where can people find you on the interwebs?
Well, thank you for inviting me. You can find me on Twitter at Trekkie01D. You can also find me on the Babel Conference. I'm interacting there as much as I can. Definitely take a listen. I'm over on Standard Orbit.
Yes, it's a great show. I listen every week. Yeah, thank you, Hayley. And listeners, don't worry. Hayley's going to join us for part 2 to continue this amazing discussion on the actors.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for joining us, Hayley. And it was great finally getting to podcast with you since the last one got all screwed up.
Yes. You could have heard me gush more about this.
I still heard it. It's been fun talking about the actors of Discovery today, but this isn't the only thing we've been discussing here on the network. So here's a quick look at some of the other things you may have missed elsewhere on Trek FM.
Previously on Trek.fm, Literary Treks.
Not to sound, too high on oneself, but I was special when we were the only ship in the Delta Quadrant, and now we're just back, and it's not as great as you think. It almost feeds into that Voyager theme of it's not the destination that matters, it's the journey, because, once you get there, it's not as amazing as you think it was going to be.
This reminds me so much of the rescue of Gilligan's Island.
I love it.
Standard Orbit.
Anson Mount, our new Captain Pike, was wandering around in the vendor's room, and I saw him. He passed by me within inches and was walking around and looking at different booths and stuff. I went up to his handler and I said, I have these bookmarks. I made these bookmarks. Would it be okay if I gave him one? I don't want to bother him. I don't want to interrupt him. And she's like, yeah. And at that point, he had turned around and I got to shake his hand. I gave him a bookmark. He is incredibly nice.
Warp 5.
He seems upset that she doesn't want to go to the movie. Now let's get back to the episode here.
But he's always upset when she doesn't want to go. Because he wants date night with her.
He does. And then Archer just swoops in and is like, you're my date. And she's like, what?
Yeah. You're coming with me. We're going to the movies.
God, that look on her face. She's like, no.
Check out all these shows and join the conversation about your favorite corner of the Star Trek universe and beyond. You'll find us wherever you get your podcasts. If you're an Apple user, be sure to hit the subscribe button in Apple Podcasts on iPhone, iPad, or Apple TV, or the desktop iTunes app to get the latest episodes as soon as they are published. And please leave us a star rating and written review.
If you're not an Apple user, we've got you covered as well. You can find our shows on Google Play Music, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spreaker, SoundCloud, Windows Phone, in most third-party apps, and you can stream and download the MP3 file from our website or grab the RSS link.
We'd love to hear your thoughts on today's show, and there are many ways for you to do that. The best place to join in the larger conversation is the Babel Conference, our listeners group on Facebook. Just type Babel, B-A-B-E-L, into the search field on Facebook, and it should come right up. If you'd like to send us an email, you can use the form on our website at trek.fm/contact. Choose to send to a show and select The Edge. That will come right to us. You can also find the network on Twitter at TrekFM and on Facebook at facebook.com/TrekFM. So, Patrick, where can people find you when you're not stalking the actors on Twitter?
Well, I do that quite often now. But when I'm not doing that, you can find me in the Babel Conference. I do pop my head up in there. I've been doing that a lot more lately. You can also find me at Twitter. I am MagicDrop5. It's one continuous word, but the 5 is a digit, not letters. And you can find me over at Warp 5 with my friends Brandy and recently returned Brandon. So, Amy, when you're not screaming from the back of the room about parallelograms, where can people find you?
Well, you can find me here on the network. I co-host Earl Grey with Justin and Richard, and that's about Star Trek Next Generation. I am on Twitter at Miss Amy Nelson, where I'm currently tweeting about my Deep Space Nine rewatch, and I'm in season 4. But my favorite place is on the Babel Conference.
If you'd like to help us keep all our shows coming to you each week, you can become a patron on the network on Patreon. Visit patreon.com/TrekFM. That's patreon.com/TrekFM to get all the details. Perks include early access to episodes, exclusive content, producer credits, and more, available through our special patrons website, Patron Zone. It requires a great deal of money to produce, host, and distribute these shows each month. We really appreciate any support you can give us and hope you'll join the team. Again, you'll find all the details at patreon.com/TrekFM.
We'd also like to thank the actors of The Edge. They're our associate producers: Norman Lau, Tony Robinson, Thomas Puleo, Lisa Slack, Joab Mirza, Richard Rutledge, James Muldrow, Cornelia Reutner. Thank you for supporting Trek FM and especially The Edge.
Thank you for listening, and join us next time to see what's happening on the edge of Federation space.